Good evening. I'd like to call to order this November 15th, 2022 business meeting. Madam Treasurer, may we have a roll call?
President Smith.
Present.
Ms. Reinhardt. Present. Mr. Sampson.
Here.
Ms. Wigani.
Thank you, I'm here.
Dr. Pickett.
Present.
Dr. Goodwin.
Here.
Mr. Lacey.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Once again, I'd like to say thank you for everybody for coming out. We will start our business meeting with a special presentation. Dr. Lally, could you give us a brief introduction, please?
Yes, we have some wonderful neighborhood school center partners, and tonight we're going to hear from Demetria Thomas about the neighborhood school center at Omega. We were supposed to hear from East End also, but the presenter is ill tonight, so we'll catch her at a different time and have her present on East End. But at this time, I'd like to invite her to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Lally. Good to see you all, Dayton School Board members. Before I share specific information about our out-of-school program, we just again want to say thank you so much for the partnership that we do have with Dayton Public Schools. Additionally, the last time I was here last year, I was the out-of-school time director. Since then, we have been able to expand and increase our capacity and leadership. And my title now is Director of Program Compliance, and my partner, co-director, who's over-director of program operations, is Courtney Dortch-Wright, and she's not here tonight, but I did want to give you all that update. As we know, Dayton Public Schools is an important partner. Yes, thank you so much. And the success of neighborhood schools centers includes not only our partnership with Dayton Public Schools, but us as a nonprofit organization, as well as university partners and funders. One of the main components of our blessing to partner with Dayton Public Schools as a neighborhood school center is to have our family resource coordinator. And again, we've been able to expand. We now, Tanae Waits, who will come up in a moment, has been holding it down for Fairview and E.J. Brown, Edwin Joel Brown Middle School last year. And we appreciate that. We're also grateful that we're able to expand to have a family resource coordinator assigned to Edwin Joel Brown Middle School. Mr. Amateo is his name. And Tanae will come up and share more information about the great work that they are both doing between Fairview and Edward Joel Brown as FRCs.
Good evening, you all. As Demetria shared, my name is Tanae Waits, and I am the Family Resource Coordinator assigned to Fairview Elementary School. So I would like to share with you all this evening just a little bit about the work that we are doing inside of Fairview Elementary and Edwin Joel Brown. We started off the beginning of this school year with a back-to-school bash, and that back-to-school bash involved families from Edwin Joel Brown Middle School as well as families from Fairview. We saw about 80 families participate in that event. Families were given backpacks full of school supplies. Our young men were given free haircuts. We also were able to give away uniform vouchers. So between both schools, we were able to give away $150 school uniform vouchers for JCPenney's. We have also been able to give out 121 vouchers for coats and shoes this year as well. We had a car seat giveaway back in September at Fairview Elementary School. We were able to service 23 families giving away car seats. We also recently had our fall festival, an opportunity for families to have fun, to share with one another. We provided them with a meal. They played various different games, and 82 students and their families participated in that event. Omega CDC is happy and proud to participate as a member of the PSC team in the building. And we were happy to organize a PSC event this year with our Phoenix officers. They actually provided popsicles to our kids who met their Mind Play and Success Maker goals. We were very excited to see that. We recently implemented something called Talk About It Tuesdays at Fairview. This is an opportunity for Omega CDC staff to be in the building and available to parents all day on Tuesdays to meet their various different needs. So we have our workforce development coach in the building to help parents with resume building, job applications, all of those employment skills that they need. We also have our family coaches available to assist with some of those case management needs that our parents have. We recently implemented a program called Parent Cafe. We just finished our first series 2 weeks ago. We had a total of 8 parents participate in that program at Fairview. It was an opportunity for parents to come together, to share with one another, to build community amongst each other, and just learn from each other in terms of what their parenting experiences have been. We were also able to support a parent in giving her a gas card, and we were also able to make a rent payment for a parent as a part of that program as well. So we will continue to support families that are in crisis. We are referring our families to Omega CDC programming. We have about 15 Fairview parents that are actively engaged in Omega CDC wraparound and supportive services. And we are constantly working to address barriers to attendance. We have given bus passes to students that need them. We are assisting families with trying to find housing resources in the community. As we look beyond this month, we have Shoes for the Shoeless that will be coming to Fairview in March. We will be providing holiday gifts and basic support, basic needs support to our families. We will also be taking our first and second graders to Christmas on campus. They are very excited about that. We are doing quarterly family engagement events. Tomorrow we will be having the Longest Table event to support our families at Fairview and E.J. Brown that are engaged in the Scholars of Hope program. We are hoping to specifically target our fathers in both buildings to get them engaged and active with their child's learning process. And we are offering ready-to-work employment classes to our parents as we move into the new year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanae. Another example of us expanding is we know that all scholars are important. We know previously we've only served kindergarten through 8th graders. But we really want to make sure that we were holding on to those scholars who have aged out of our Freedom Schools, as well as our Scholars of Hope After School program. And so we have implemented something called Scholar University for our 9th graders. In this program, and it's an initiative as part of what we do for those scholars who have been with us previously, and they meet twice a month. One time of the month, they meet for a field trip. The other time, they have something, they come together as a connection session at the Hope Center for Families just to bond, because they are used to seeing each other literally like every single day or for 6 weeks in the summer. And so our main focus is career exploration for those scholars, helping them to navigate not just high school, but what is life beyond high school. And as the slide shows, it shows all different areas that includes. We're going to help them with their FAFSAs, ACTs, SATs. Of course, we know that academics are great, but social emotional wellness and awareness is just as important. And so Scholar University is led by Shamia Knight, who is a prevention specialist, and we also focus in on that. Additionally, within Scholar University, providing information about labor, the labor market, and career opportunities is also part of what they do for Scholar University. And they have taken field trips, as I mentioned. And these field trips we know that exposure is important, so it's not in one particular area. It's the goal is to cover a plethora of areas because you just never know, as Jeffrey Canada mentioned last night at our gala, what part will actually intersect and make a difference for scholars' lives. And so already since August, they have been on several field trips. They have gone to Camp Kern, and I was at that one. It was very interesting seeing them navigate just thinking skills, team building, and all of that, and then taking risks. You know, what is it like to actually zip line? And overcoming those fears was pretty powerful. They also experienced entrepreneurship by being able to be at Dayton Arcade half of the day, as well as going to Picture Perfect Painting downtown in Dayton. The scholars at Scholar University have also, this past Tuesday when DPS did not have school, they went to Bowling Green State University for a college tour. Additionally, some future field trips that Scholar University will include volunteering with Habitat for Humanity in Dayton. They're going to be doing, later on this month, they're doing a Gym City Market cooking class, as well as adopting a park, as well as getting them involved in YouthWorks. Last summer, we did have 3 of our scholars who were involved in our Freedom Schools at Edwin Joel Brown Middle School who actually were also part of YouthWorks. And so the goal is to help those scholars in the Scholar University make sure that they have a placement within YouthWorks and, of course, prayerfully at one of our sites. The next slide, you'll actually see them looking like scholars at Dayton Arcade. Pictures are always great. The next slide is at Picture Perfect Paint Parties. And you can move to the next slide. Yes. And then the one after that actually highlights one of our scholars, De'Aaron, who actually, you see him enjoying painting there. He actually is one of our individuals who got to actually introduce Geoffrey Canada last night, as well as the next slide shows our other person that got to speak last night introducing Geoffrey Canada. So they, of course, really enjoyed those gatherings and community building. So now I'm going to move on to the Scholars of Hope enrichments and our academics and what our enrollment looks like. So at Fairview, we currently have 79 scholars. But we have a wait list of just as many scholars as we have enrolled. You'll see there's 65 waiting. That is because we are needing more teachers. As there is a shortage everywhere, we too are affected by that. So we're continuing to look for ways to actively employ high quality, phenomenal teachers and assistant teachers who most importantly have a heart to serve our scholars. At Edwin Joel Brown, we currently have 25 enrolled, and we do not have a waiting list, and we are definitely actively trying to encourage enrollment also at Edwin Joel Brown Middle School. In terms of academics, because we are a 21st century site at Edwin Joel Brown, but we're not at Fairview, we still are holding true to the same high quality standards, even though we are not a 21st century site at Fairview. I think that's really important, that we give our scholars excellence, no matter what the requirement is. And so all of our curricula is focused on being evidence-based. The lesson plans are aligned with DPS pacing guides. Additionally, our certified lead teachers that are DPS teachers provide whole class, one-on-one, and small group instructions. We are currently using Focus Math, Passport to Literacy, and Language Live as our curriculas at those 2 sites. In terms of enrichments, the scholars love enrichments, and we know that's just as important because it's worldview, it's new opportunities, it sparks an interest. And so at Fairview this semester, we have yoga, martial arts, theater, and agriculture. At E.J. Brown, we currently have martial arts again, media arts, which is a partnership we have with Dayton Metro Libraries. That particular contractor works for Dayton Metro Libraries during the day at Northwest Dayton Branch, and career exploration that's actually being done by a member of the Omega CDC staff by Eleanor. Now I'm going to get into everyone's favorite topic, which is data. So, there are 2 main focus areas I'm going to focus on today within data, and that is our Learning Circle data as well as our DESA data. So Omega CDC is really grateful again for our partnership with Dayton Public Schools, and be able to share data is really helpful. And so Learning Circles supports not only the academic and the social growth of all the scholars. It is an interface that links student data with participating Dayton regional school districts, with supporting nonprofits providing out-of-school time, i.e. Omega CDC. In terms of the DESA, it focuses in on social emotional learning. So let's look at this really quickly. At Fairview, there are 58 of the 72 scholars who are currently attending our program that are above the 90 percentile with school day data as of today. Additionally, attendance at school is slightly higher in November than it was in September. In terms of looking at the Learning Circle data for behavior, 62 of the 72 scholars who participate in our program have not received any documented disciplinary actions from the school district. 8 out of 72 of these scholars have received minor documented disciplinary action, with 2 of 72 receiving moderate to mild or minor documented disciplinary actions. In terms of academics, at this time, we are not at the elementary school level able to, this data is inconclusive because we're not able to get the academic data for the younger grades. However, Dr. Stock, who is our local evaluator, is our partner and takes a look at all of our data points for both of our sites. Now, in terms of DESA, the Devereaux Student Success Assessment, I'm not going to go through all of this for the sake of time, but I think it is important to highlight, and you'll see it again when we look at the DESA information for E.J. Brown. We're grateful for the high number we do see that's in the green here. And it's 15% of our scholars that are at Fairview who need a little bit of assistance, which we're grateful for our partnership with Goodwill Easter Seals. We have a licensed counselor who will be part of our intervention team to help those scholars who need a little bit extra support, social emotional support. I will also say we do have at both sites that licensed social worker has beginning to hold groups for individuals who need a little extra support. But I want to highlight the 3rd through 6th grade. I thought it's really interesting, and you'll see it again in the upper grades as well, that in terms of the areas of least strength being the optimistic thinking area, you'll see that quite a bit in this data. I thought that was very interesting. And at the same time, there's a great strength in terms of relationship skills in quite a few of the grades as well. Now, moving on to Edwin Joel Brown Middle School, in terms of their attendance, 21 of our 24 scholars are above the 90 percentile in terms of school time data as of today. Additionally, for behavior, 13 of the 24 scholars participating in our program have not received any documented disciplinary actions from the school district. 9 out of 24 scholars have received minor documented disciplinary actions, and 2 out of the 24 have received moderate to minor documented disciplinary actions. Now here, for academics, we are able to look at this data. Scholars' academic data for 7th and 8th grade scholars is currently available, thankfully, with this partnership, and we're able to gather this from Learning Circles. So, 9 of 24 scholars are within the A-B range academically. 9 of 24 are within the C range academically. 3 of 24 are within the D range academically, and 3 of the 24 we have our data is not unavailable for, which we will continue to try to get that particular, all the data points that we need to put them into the system. In terms of DESA, the social emotional tool we use, at Edwin Joel Brown, our 7th graders showed the highest strength in social awareness and personal responsibility. And here we go again, least strength of optimistic thinking. I'm sure COVID, again, has I believe, has a great impact on this. Some scholars were struggling before COVID. It just became worse for a lot of people in how their outlook on life, right? And that includes our young scholars, whether that's kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. Additionally, our 8th grade scholars showed strength in decision-making, which is great. And here we go again, the least strength, just as in 7th grade, is in optimistic thinking. As Tanae has already mentioned, we do have our longest table event that's going to happen tomorrow in terms of upcoming events. We're very excited that that's going to be held at Fairview, but both sites, the families are encouraged to come. It's great to be able to do that. I know the city used to do that all around the city pre-COVID, so we're really excited about that activity. We do have some volunteers that are part of our program that, of course, will also be there as well to help serve. Another upcoming event that will take place on Thursday, I thought it was really important that our scholars in Scholar University have a mentor, because I know that that can also make a difference. Evidence has shown, even if you have a high ACE score, if you have even one caring adult in your life, you can mitigate a higher ACE score. And so with that, we are going to have an informational on this Thursday for those who are interested in mentoring, a one-on-one mentorship with our scholars in Scholar University. Of course, they can also come and chaperone and do other things like that. So those are the two upcoming events. Thank you all so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to be with you all and to share the great work that we're doing at Omega Community Development Corporation, and more specifically at our two schools that we serve at Fairview and Edward Joel Brown Middle School. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. I know you just bailed on us.
Sorry, Will.
But I want to first say thank you just for what you guys are doing. Just seeing the growth in the program. I'm aging myself. Remember when we were working across the hall from each other when all this stuff was coming to fruition at the Hope Center and just
Yes.
seeing. So I'm really proud of that work. Just want to say we appreciate it, first of all. Now, before I turn it over to the board, I did want to ask, when we look at Edwin Joel Brown, in your estimation, what are some of the challenges around trying to get some of our scholars at that middle school range to be able to come stay after school? What are some of the things that you see that maybe even we could help out and assist in?
Well, one of it is we know there's a dynamic that's in middle school and even high school that's not in elementary school, and that is extracurricular activities. And so as we're building at Edwin Joel Brown, they don't know, unless they came from Fairview, they don't know we even exist, right? Because it was a soft start at EJ a couple years ago, and then last year we just started the program, and now we have a different principal, and so it's starting fresh, really, in a lot of ways, because some of those have moved on to Scholar University. And so really getting the young people and the families to understand that you don't have to choose football, for example, or basketball to be in Scholars of Hope. You can do both. We've tried to communicate this in a variety of different ways to families, into the scholars, into the administration in the building, right? That you can do it all. So, of course, because for compliance reasons, you have to be with us a certain amount of hours per week, right? But if they come, when they do study tables, right? And then if they were to come to us, for example, and then they're with us until they have practice, those dosage times still count. The days that they don't have football practice or football games, they should be expected, of course, to come to our after-school program. So it really is helping everyone understand that you can do both. Mm-hmm. That's been one, I would say, the biggest challenge.
Okay, appreciate it. Any other questions from the board? Dr. Pickett?
Thank you. You mentioned universities as partners. What is the role of the university students in the program?
Yes, so we have had a long history with the United States. Yes, with the United States, but also University of Dayton. And recently we were able to get another intern from UD. And so that's one example of our partnerships.
Thank you.
Mr. Lacy?
So, the 65 wait list, how many teachers would it take? How many teachers do you need?
So our model has shifted this year. In years past, we use a model of 2 to 10 or 2 to 12 in terms of the scholar-teacher ratio in the classroom. What we've done this year is shifted. We still have our lead certified teachers, but as I mentioned, we're using them differently than in the past. So the assistant teachers are doing the whole class instruction with the lead certified teachers doing small group or one-on-one. So that model, we don't need as many certified teachers with the model we're using now, compared to the old model we were using. I mean, it's hard to. I would say at least if we could get 10, it would be great.
So really, it's not a question of money. It's just you're having trouble finding. You're finding people.
Well, I mean, we would always love more resources in terms
Right.
of money, but yes, it's just, also finding teachers. And then it's interesting, like, we just hired somebody, and then unfortunately somebody else, there was a transition with somebody else, so it's like going back and forth a little bit for a couple positions. But yes, it's a capacity challenge in terms of just really getting teachers into our program.
And as Ms. Thompson indicated, this is also happening in the other programs as well.
Yeah.
The YMCA is short-staffed, as well as East End,
Okay.
having a difficult time finding teachers.
And have you guys looked into summer programming at all?
In terms of,
Having a summer program,
we have summer.
or
we
do you
summer.
do? Okay.
I just didn't focus in on summer because I had a short time period.
Well,
But
you can go over. I don't care.
But we have a long, I would say we are very much, we had our Camp Hope Freedom Schools last
Okay.
year. We served 75 at Fairview and 35 to 50 at Edwin Joel Brown Middle School. But we're one of the longest running freedom schools in the city. And so we absolutely will be doing that again this summer. We've already been notified. We are official site. We are grateful for our partnership with the Montgomery County United Way. And so there'll be more freedom school sites again this summer. So even when COVID hit and there was no freedom school sites in the city of Dayton or in Montgomery County, we still did summer programming virtually the first summer, and then the second summer in person, even when we have not done freedom schools, using the same model but not calling it freedom school. And that would include using EasyCBM as our reading tool, pre and post assessments, progress monitoring. All those things took place even when we have not been a freedom school, but we pride ourselves in being a part of the freedom school movement, and we'll be doing that again this summer.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say, presentation, I'm excited about what I'm hearing. And to Mrs. Waite, keep on doing it. I know they're running you ragged, but you just keep on serving. Couple questions, Dr. Lawley. One question is, as relates to the shortage of teachers, do our partners have the access to utilize like our email where we can go out and solicit teachers for them, letting them know that there's a need?
We actually have posted those positions, and, excuse me, the YMCA had asked if we could send those regularly to them, so we can also do that to Ms. Thompson and make sure she has that. But we have posted the positions internally. I also spoke at an event on Saturday and announced to, it was a large number of retired teachers, and I announced to them that we also were looking for after-school teachers if they had an interest in coming just for a few hours and working with any of our neighborhood schools. That we would be very willing to have them return.
All right, and then my last question, Mr. President, is for you, Ms. Thompson. You kept on saying that we're grateful for the partnership. Mm-hmm. What could we do to be better partners?
I think one, that would be great if we could have more of exposure, of course, like you just mentioned, Dr. Lawley, of literally help with recruitment for teachers. And I'm glad you asked that question because it ties into what Dr. Lawley said, which is why I was going to make a comment, is that the other thing about, for example, retired teachers, in years past, they have had to submit lesson plans in our old model. They've had to submit lesson plans and do all the instruction, all of that. We have given that a lift so that the co-teachers who are not the certified teachers, they're doing the lesson plans, and the lead certified teacher serves as a consultant, a mentor, helping them with their lesson plans. And having been a teacher, it is, you appreciate, you still want to be in the work, but for retired people, they may be more willing to do it knowing they don't have to literally formulate lesson plans 4 days a week, but they're serving more as a mentor to an assistant teacher, and looking over lesson plans and make sure things are being done with fidelity and doing small group instruction. So I think that that is definitely one thing. And again, just additional help trying to get scholars. We want to make sure that we have more scholars at Edwin Joel Brown Middle School. Our goal at that site is 100. And right now, like I said, our number is 25 strong. We love those that we have, but we know that the need is great. And we know that scholars' brains are still developing, so they don't know sometimes that they need something like this. And so as much support that we can get to help with that would be also great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Goodwin.
Thank you. It's always good to see you. It'd be nice if you can wear those Edward Joe colors or Fairview, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, neither one of them got red in their color, but just saying.
I know.
2 questions for you. I did hear about I saw in here the career exploration and just exposing individuals to colleges and things like that. Are you guys also doing anything with trade careers, partnering with any apprenticeship programs or things like that, just to expose individuals to those?
So that is on the list. We have not done it yet. In other words, it is on the list absolutely as something that's also be focused in on. Like I said, we started in August, and so we just, because we don't have them every single day for the field trips or whatever, and even the connection sessions, another opportunity to bring an individual to come and actually speak about their career, for example, that they're doing that's in a vocational trade. So that is definitely on the list. Thank you
Okay.
for the question.
Okay, and my second question in regards to the teacher shortage, which everyone has a teacher shortage right now, and I continue to ask this, not only of people who come up to us, ask us for stuff, but of our superintendents. Are you guys looking at any innovative ways to get beyond the traditional path of finding someone that's already ready to go as a teacher, knowing that even in the field itself, there is a shortage of individuals entering, and there is a large amount of people exiting? Do you have any type of programs with those co-teachers that may not have teaching credentials, but they're displaying that they can handle what you need? And if so, because we need some tips, so, like, share them.
I wish I had that answer, Dr. Goodwin. I don't, but I will say this, it ties into our goal of not only serving and keeping our hands and our hearts on our scholars, but that includes our staff. And an example of this is our servant leader interns, who are a part of our Freedom School movement. We always try to reach out to those that are local. Those are college students. So a lot of times they can work with us in the summertime, but they can't do the school year because they're away at different schools outside of the Dayton area. But an example of that is we have one of our co-teachers who does go to Sinclair Community College, who is local, obviously, serving as a co-teacher. So, you know, we don't have it all figured out, but we've been trying to find, because for the co-teachers, you don't need to have a teacher's license. It's just a certified teachers. And so we have found that also trying to encourage those that are already a part of the organization, already a part of the culture of what we do, to apply for other positions has been one way that's been helpful. As I mentioned to you, the one young lady we have right now that's a co-teacher who actually was a servant leader intern this past school year.
Okay, and I have 2 more questions for you. With the fall semester enrichment, have you seen even the things that you put on here? Like, I see martial arts, and is there a big interest in martial arts at this? Is it because Cobra Kai is out now and they're back?
It is absolutely huge. So our martial arts instructor, Master Steve Allen, has been with us actually since the very beginning of Scholars of Hope. And some years I've been able to bring him on as a contractor in the summer as well. His class is extremely popular. And the good thing about that, you know, that especially when dealing with the arts, continuity and consistency is super important. So it's both, and we want to expose scholars to different enrichments. At the same time, give those who may be really interested, for example, in a martial arts, the opportunity to continue to, with the same instructor semester after semester, summer after summer has been really helpful.
Okay, that's good to hear. I mean, this may be an opportunity for us at DPS if there's a program out there where martial arts is an interest. I mean, I know judo is a thing that people go on, and us actually expanding our, I don't even know if it will, I mean, it still should fall under athletics, of expanding some of these these athletic paths to things that you are finding kids are interested, because where else would they do it outside of here?
Right.
And then
Right. Can I say something else about that,
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Goodwine? Another example of that is our Radical Blooming agriculture class is taught by Ms. Jasmine Stewart. They love that class. They absolutely love that enrichment. It's hands-on, and she's very creative. She gets into ecosystems, so it's not just them planting flowers. I love flowers, and they do plant flowers, but she really gets into all kinds of areas that they definitely would not be exposed to if it wasn't for the opportunity to be in that Radical Blooming enrichment class.
Okay, and then just my final question for you, because I heard you mention that you guys are partnering with University of Dayton. Are you having any partnerships with the public institutions like Wright State, Central State University, Ohio State, even with the agricultural part you're saying right there, those extension programs? Are any of that on your radar at all?
Well, of course they're on our radar. As a matter of fact, again, talking about trying to be year-round, one of the main places that we actually recruit for our summer servant leader interns is Central State. So we attend, for example, the career fairs at Central State last year. We'll do that again this year. We did last year take the 7th and 8th graders to Central State University and Wright State University in the same day for college tours. So we continue to look for ways to partner with the local PWIs and HBCUs as well.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. One quick question on my end. Looking at how we talk about some of those enrollment pieces and outreach, has there been any connections at Edwin Joe Brown to try to work through with the Office of Males of Color and the Females of Color?
Not intentionally. I know that they are in the building, but not the way that we need to. That is definitely something we need to do intentionally, for sure. Because again, it's not a conflict. It's interesting you say that, because I was dropping off some supplies last Thursday to the building at E.J. Brown, and a young man, real nice young man, was helping me. The secretary got him to help me bring the stuff inside the building. Really nice young man, and I just began to talk to him, and I said, I said, you'll be great in Scholars of Hope, right? And he was like, I said, I can't do that. Here we go. I said, why? He said, because I'm already in a program. I said, what's the program? He said, Males of Color. And I said, no, it's not a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So they just don't know that there's not a conflict. And so I said, no, they meet. I said, it's a great program. I'm so glad you're in it. They meet during the day.
Mm-hmm.
We're after school. So it's again goes back to continuing to make the case and make sure that people understand that where you think there may be a conflict, there really isn't a conflict. We're another added resource to the wellness and wholeness of that particular child.
Appreciate that. I think that's something on our end that we can probably connect and try to create those connections to help out with. Like you said, it's not a competition. It actually enhances both programs.
Right, and I do know Dr. Worley has, he actually, the clap-in, I mean, he a real strong presence. I can't remember if it was again this school year or last school year. He had his whole staff out at our clap-in. So, I know, of course, Dr. Worley is definitely amenable to partnership. And like I said, I know he has supported the work that we're doing because he definitely has brought his staff out to our clap-in before.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? Dr. Goodwin?
The comment, like even with that partnership, I see that you have the mentorship thing on here. It may be a good thing to, if you're not already working with Angela Worley, because her volunteer base is one of
Excellent.
the largest I've seen. So if even putting the three of you all, the three programs together to see how they can help each other.
That's a good idea. I'll reach out to Angela today.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Anybody else? Ms. Witt-Gagne?
Thank you, President Smith. Thank you. Nice to see you, Dorothea.
Nice.
I was just going to request, too, that, with the significant open opportunities at E.J. Brown, that perhaps I know we have many students that would deeply benefit by these wonderful services that you're offering, and how we at DPS can we get these, I mean, this is just, you should not have open seats. So, bringing these opportunities together. So I'm going to work to make sure those things get filled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? I see there's none. Look forward to seeing you again. Got to get out there this summer, Freedom School.
Absolutely.
Get Mr. Lacy to do Harambe one time.
Yes, you see Mr. Sampson over there doing the show, but he's ready to. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the hearing of the bargaining units. Do we have any bargaining units present to speak?
President Smith, Vice President Reinhardt, board members, Superintendent Lawley, Treasurer Braha, and DPS staff and families. Good evening. I am Neil Mahoney, the president of the Dayton Education Association. I would like to take this time to thank all the individuals who played a role in bringing the recently completed tentative agreement before you tonight. The preparation began last fall for our negotiations team, moved into negotiation sessions that began in May and continued throughout the summer, and concluded with a tentative agreement being ratified by 86% of our membership at an all-city meeting held November 1st. On behalf of the membership of the Dayton Education Association, I'd like to thank the DEA negotiation team members, Langston Watrous, Whitney Dewberry, Felicia Hill, Felicia Thompson, and Bridget Federspiel for your time, your efforts, and the sacrifices you made for the members of the Dayton Education Association. I also would like to thank this board for your support of our members. It has been felt and is truly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other bargaining units present to speak? Seeing that there are none, we will move on to the hearing of the public. As always, I'd like to remind you, you have 3 minutes. When you come up, please identify yourself, state your name and address. Also address the board as a whole. If you have any materials for distribution, please hand to the treasurer and she will distribute it to us. Also, lastly, it's inappropriate to address any matter involving pending disputes, grievances under a labor agreement, disciplinary action involving employee or student, ongoing labor negotiations, concerns or matters that have already been settled, and/or any matter which, because of its nature, is deemed appropriate to be discussed in executive session. Madam Treasurer, do we have any members of the public registered to speak?
Yes, I have one,
Okay.
Jamie Ryan.
Miss Ryan, come on down. You know you got your assigned seat right there.
Need to come to my house. I live at 2137 East 5th Street. Good evening, members of the board. I'm here tonight to express my thoughts on a few issues. First of all, I am really intrigued by the professional development from think tank that is planned for Kaiser next week. I would really be interested in hearing feedback from the teachers and staff regarding their experience, maybe at next month's business meeting. Secondly, as I did last year, I am advocating for all teachers and staff to get the entire week of Thanksgiving off. I understand it is built into the calendar for professional development, like the one I just mentioned, but I think it would go a long way for building morale within the district. I would like the administration to give thought to this idea, if not for this year, then for the next school year and those that follow. Thirdly, I would like to share my thoughts about, the State Board of Education, quote, resolution to support parents, schools, and districts in rejecting harmful, coercive, and burdensome gender identity policies, end quote. 2, the resolution passed by this board last week opposing the aforementioned policy. 3, how it was passed, and 4, the amended resolution passed yesterday, I think, by the State Board of Education, or at least the Executive Council. I don't have much time, but I do think all of the resolutions from the State Board and the DPS Board have some merit and have some flaws. Looking out for the interests of all the stakeholders in a school community, students, parents, teachers, is not a simple dance. especially regarding the complex issue of gender identity. The original resolution put forth by State Board of Education member Shea was flawed in many ways, and the amended version submitted by State Board member Mike Toll is a move in the right direction. What I appreciate about Toll's amended version is the emphasis on local control. I encourage you to read the amended resolution if you haven't, and I have copies here. I think it is worth our time to read it in order to inform any future resolution or policy decisions within DPS. My main concern here is how hastily this body passed last week's resolution with little discussion or community input. I understand the sense of urgency that motivated last week's action. However, I do think a fuller conversation is necessary to provide an adequate response to the State Board's resolution. I would welcome being part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. As we move on next, I want to say thank you again, Ms. Ryan, for coming out, and also extend the invitation to anyone from our public to come out for our hearing of the public at our business meetings. Next, we'll move on to Dr. Lally. Your recommendations.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend the approval of the HR agenda.
Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation A. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions on the motion? Dr. Goodwine.
Yes. Line 20 through 23, can you tell me what steps we took as a district to help these individuals go from support specialists to long-term subs?
I'll ask Chief Harmon to come forward.
So those three individuals actually were specifically requested by their principal. And so she has some direct supports in place at the building, and they are already familiar with the students, and I've been working with those groups of kids. But based on their degree, they were able to take on that substitute teaching license, and so they could be moved to long-term sub. But we also have, I think you're aware of this, we have a new staff orientation every 2 weeks. And so I can't tell you honestly if they're at the next one or if they, but I can look to see what orientation that they are either have attended or are about to attend that also works, our curriculum team works directly with those folks in that orientation.
Okay, I mean, that's great that I see people going in because I know we need subs. So if there is something that that team did that can be mirrored in other places, then we should mirror it to try to fill some of our gaps. I got a couple more questions. I do see that, I see some, what is that, spring coaches on here. It's really good to see that we're thinking ahead. I like to see that in us. I believe last time there were a couple, I think it was like 1 or 2 openings left for the winter sports. Have those been filled?
Yeah, I was given the athletics update. Again, and this is their report. I'm happy to share with that. So they have 4 bowling coaches in place at Ponit, Stivers, Dunbar, and Thurgood. This is for winter. They have wrestling coaches in place at all 6 high schools, with 2 high schools having enough female students for a separate team. And we have swim coaches in place at 2 buildings, Ponitz and Stivers. Students from Meadowdale and Belmont have also been participating in, as well with those swim teams. And there are no other vacancies for the winter in any other building beyond that. And then there's also been significant progress, as you've mentioned, on some of the spring hires already. So they're out in front of things.
Okay, thank you. My question, this one is for Dr. Lally. I heard 4 bowling coaches, but we have 6 high schools. Can you let me know what happened with the other 2 schools? And either if there was no interest or...
I'll be glad to check that, yes.
And then my final question, I do see a lot of the DEA extra duties. It's been 4 years since we've had debate in this district. Are there any plans to bring debate back to this district? Debate teams or debate programs?
The debate supplemental is still available. It's just a matter of finding someone in the buildings to actually do the debate. And there have been some students that have expressed that in my leadership lunches, that they would like to have a debate team. So hopefully, we're going to be able to get a couple in place at least this year.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. For me, Chief, I know you come before us and talked about the work that your team was doing, getting out into the schools and speaking with staff. Can you give me an update on some of the updated numbers? Have you circled back and repeated talking to some
Sure.
people? How are we at with that initiative?
Well, thank you for asking that question, actually, because there's several bullet points I have ready for you that I'd love to share. So one of the things that I highlight, so tons of credit to our whole team, but there's some individuals I want to call out directly and specifically. So Cindy Timmer and she's had a couple folks in our team help her as well. Stacy Mops and Dr. Rashara Richardson, as well as a few others. But Cindy went out to many, many buildings. I don't know if I can say for sure every single building, but she directly met with 527 individuals to help enroll them in their insurance. So it's time to open enroll for next year, and she met with 527 people to help them navigate that process. And I will just be proud to tell you that's something we've not done that before, and so that's a ton of credit to Cindy for her tremendous effort, and a few folks who helped her as well. So 73% of the individuals in the district who have insurance did that whole process. The other 27% automatically roll over, but it's important for people to take a look at what am I paying for, what do I need to be paying for. So that was a huge undertaking. Yesterday at Stivers, we had a event which was for our long-term subs, meeting with our long-term subs to help them navigate the process, if they so choose to do so, to move from long-term sub into a full licensed teacher credentials. And there's a number of pathways that you can do that. It's not easy, but a ton of credit to the folks who came out for that, as well as our team for putting that event together. There were more than 100 staff were invited. 53 current long-term subs expressed interest in this. We did have, because of last week's event with Dr. Lawley getting the Superintendent of the Year, we did move that date. So 31 actually attended yesterday, last evening. And then we are going to do that event again in the spring, just because we think it was pretty good. And Stacy Maney, our executive director, also sent out today a survey back to everyone who attended and just said, hey, kind of give us your feedback. What worked for you? Did we answer your questions? What else should we have said? So asking for feedback from those folks. But really excited to say that we're maybe moving down the path with possibly as many as 31 people who, there's a partnership with Ohio State University and Bluffton College, Bluffton University now, and how you can do that process. And so there's some choices that individuals get to make if they wish to do that. But we've not done that before either. So, and then in the last week, we have decreased our vacancies by 20 individuals. So our number of vacancies is down by 20 in a week. So pretty proud of that as well. So did you have specific questions beyond that?
So you talked about lowering our vacancies. Where is our biggest need right now in your estimation?
Paraprofessionals, not an estimation.
I was gonna guess that, and I saw we had lost a few on this one, so I take it that's kind of this area you're zoning in on as well.
It
with
is.
Everything else.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for Chief Dr. Goodwin?
With your, I don't know what you call them, but the pop-in HR sessions, the ones on site, have you guys done any of that in the transportation department?
We did go out to transportation. They had their own one individual event. I think one thing we learned from that event is based on when routes come back, we probably needed to do maybe two, or at least two, maybe more than two, to get the groups of folks that are coming in because of the space there. So we were there at the beginning of when routes were coming back and the first wave of drivers coming in. And actually we went through a lot of times we have swag. We'll have water bottles or DPS gear. Went through a lot of DPS gear, and then we were scheduled to move on to the next building. And I think we have learned that we probably could have had another second session there as well. And we will be. We're doing that again in the spring as well, so.
Okay, and how did the online, the little anime series go for you guys? Have you rolled that out yet?
The online,
You as a character?
open enrollment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. So 73% of our staff went through an active process, and again, a ton of credit to Cindy for helping make that happen.
No, I mean, how the views on it, how were the views on watching that video?
I'll have to look to see.
Okay.
After watching it once, I never looked at it again because it's a little weird to watch yourself, but.
Okay, and then my final question, because I just heard you mention the partnership with Ohio State and, I don't remember the other college. It was
Bluffton.
Not Ohio State, the other place. Have you guys been exploring working with any of the surrounding universities to offer an on-site cohort for individuals that want to go in that path?
So we are, yes, we are also in the works with Central State to put together a paraprofessionals to, in this case, it would be intervention specialists process that it's in its infancy, I would say. That's existed in prior years, but we've met with the Dr. Drakeford, and we're working on that. We have a survey out for the number of folks, and that's a huge number of individuals as well that are potentially interested in that. So they would be putting together a specialized program at very, very limited cost to the individuals that are involved.
Okay, and I have one final question. With the program that I heard here, I believe I heard Meadowdale and Belmont have swim teams, but they don't have coaches. I believe this question may be for our business manager on the transportation of how those kids are getting to and from practice. Or if you know.
I don't, but just the specifics of it, there are swim coaches in place at both Ponance and Stivers, and you're right that Meadowdale and Belmont have students that are participating as well. Are you joining me? Coming up?
Yeah, we can easily transport the students on Saturdays. Right now, we're working you have to have a coach. So we're working on transporting all the students from the other schools to Ponance and then having a coach ride with them all the way to the YMCA during the week. So that's in the process and works now.
Okay, and how are you communicating, like where you are with that, with the parents at those other schools? I don't know how they know.
I just talked to him today, so we haven't started that yet.
Okay. So right now, the parents are required to get them there if they want them to participate until we get something solidified on our side?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions for Chief Harmon? Appreciate
Thank you all.
Chief.
Appreciate it.
I did have a question. Dr. Lally, with us going into our winter sports, what is that process looking like of getting not only just evaluations just from coaches and people involved in our fall sports, but how are we creating this feedback loop to kind of see some of their input and then implement it not just in the next season, next year, but how is some of that rolling over to the winter season?
Are you talking about how are the coaches being evaluated?
Not how they're being, but not the per se evaluation of what they're doing, but their input on just needs and things that they see that could improve the athletics. How are we, capturing that and then having that turnaround, not until, say, not talking to volleyball coaches and then fixing it for next volleyball season, but some of those things that could be implemented for wrestling now. So is that something that athletics is currently doing?
I can't answer that, but I will find out and let the board know.
I appreciate that. Any other questions from the board concerning HR? If there are no other questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the board approve the DEA after July 10th Human
Okay.
Resources Agenda.
Thank you. I'll move to approve Superintendent Recommendation B. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Seeing there are no questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
No.
Ms. Reinhardt,
No.
Mr. Sampson,
No.
Ms. Wiegany,
No.
Dr. Pickett,
No.
Dr. Goodwin,
No.
Mr. Lacy.
No.
7 no.
Thank you. Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the contracts listed that were reviewed last week at the review session.
Move to approve Superintendent Recommendation C. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions?
One question.
Dr. Goodwin?
Has there been any update on any of the other schools securing prime locations since last week?
No.
Do they have a timeline of when they need to secure them locations?
Many of them will finish that process in December, and there are a couple that do it in January.
That's all.
Any other questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the DEA contract as listed.
Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation D. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing there are none, I do want to echo sentiments of Mr. Mahoney, President Mahoney. I appreciate everybody that worked to get this done. Just appreciate this work going forward and understanding that we appreciate our teachers and all our staff that work with us here at DPS. Seeing if there are no other questions, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend that the board approve the memorandum of understanding with West Ed.
Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation E. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the resolution for administrative DSS salary increases listed in the agenda.
Okay. Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation F. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the organizational chart school year '23.
Move to accept Superintendent Recommendation G. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Dr. Lally.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the affiliation agreement with Sinclair Nursing. Just a point of clarification, the board approved this earlier in June, and when it was sent back to Sinclair, they found an error in it, so they corrected the error, but essentially it's the same memorandum of understanding.
Okay. Move to accept Superintendent's Recommendation H. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone?
I don't think so.
Okay. 7 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Does that conclude your recommendation, Dr. Lally?
It does, and I would ask that the board refresh their screens.
Because I hit the wrong button.
All right. That concludes your recommendations, Dr. Lally.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
We'll move on to Madam Treasurer. Your recommendations, please.
I have 5-year forecast presentation and 5-year forecast to be approved in detail. So we'll start with the presentation. Sharice? Okay. This 5-year forecast is for this year, November. And all the school districts in Ohio are required to file 5-year forecast in November 30th and May 31st of each year. The 5-year forecast includes 3 years of actual and 5 years of projected general fund revenues and expenditures. Fiscal year 2023 is the first year of the 5-year forecast and is considered the baseline of the year. Our forecast is being considered and updated to reflect the most current economic data available to us for the November 2022 filing. When we say the most current economic data, is what we did is we reviewed, since we have our biggest revenues are from the state foundation and taxes, we evaluated the tax valuations and the history of the collections, and we came to our assumption. The same way, and the historical data. The same way with the state foundation revenues, since we are very heavily dependent on school foundation. We reviewed the calculation, we reviewed the historical data and everything, and we assumed what we think we're going to get. The same way with our expenditures. We reviewed the historical data and looked at the needs of our departments and see what we can afford or we cannot afford to educate our children. Next. So, purpose and objectives of this forecast: to engage the Board of Education and the community in long planning and discussions of financial issues facing the school district, to serve as basis of determining the school ability to sign the certificate required by ORC 5705.412, commonly known for 12 certificates, to provide a method for the Department of Education and Auditor of State to identify school districts with potential financial problems. Next, okay. Before we get to the numbers, a financial forecast is somewhat like a painting of the future based upon a snapshot of today. The 5-year forecast is viewed as a key management tool and should be updated periodically. In financial forecasts, the numbers only tell a small part of the story. For the numbers to be meaningful, one must be review and consider the notes and assumptions before drawing conclusions or using the data as basis of other calculations. The 5-year forecast encourages district management teams to examine future years' projections and identify the challenges will arise. This helps district management to be proactive in meeting those challenges. Next slide, please. Key line items. The 5-year forecast is divided into 2 sections, revenue and expenditures. A district's revenue is made up 2 main sources, which are local taxes, mainly, and state funding. The expenditures are mainly salary and wages, benefits, purchased services, and supplies and materials. Next slide. Okay, now, what I put in this one is a small snapshot of the 5-year forecast. The 5-year forecast and the assumptions are going to be approved, and it's included in this board agenda after I finish with this presentation. So as you can see in here, is the first 3 years are actual, and the next 5 years are projected. As you can see, in 2020, we were spending more than we collect our revenues. So you see $7 million over the revenue. So what we do in that, when it happens, that one is we get it from our reserve fund balances. But we moved some expenditures, and the next year we came into positive. But we are projecting deficit spending. Deficit spending meaning is we spend more than we collect. So we'll go to the bottom of this page, and we have, these are actuals, the first 3 years. The first 3 years showed 67.1 million unreserved cash balance, 69.5 unreserved cash balance, and 90.7 unreserved cash balance for those actuals. But we are projecting positives up to 2025. But after 2025, we're projecting we'll go into a deficit. Next slide, please. Next slide, it shows our revenues and revenues, expenditures, and fund cash balance. As you can see in here, is cash balance is positive through 2025, but falling quickly after that. The fund balance reserve policy is funded for fiscal year 2024, but 25 and beyond cannot be funded. So we didn't put a fund reserve on those years. Next slide, please. Local revenues versus the state revenues. This is just to show you our main revenues. As you can see, we are heavily dependent on the state. The yellow shows the state and the red shows the local. So HB 110, House Bill 110, restores funding to fiscal year 2021 levels when considering direct payments. Declines in 2022 to 2027, those declines, they are due to the HB, House Bill of 110 funding school choices, where students are educated and not flow through our district. So the payments are going directly to them. Next slide. This slide shows estimated general fund revenue sources fiscal year 2023. As you can see in here in this pie chart, 62.9% of the district's revenue comes from state sources, and 37.2% comes from local. So, and here, since we are very heavy dependent on the state, understanding the formulas and understanding the changes is very critical to our district. Next slide, please. This one is estimated general fund expenditures for fiscal year 2023. So it shows our wages is 52%, benefits is 19%, purchased services is 19%, 3% capital, and 1% other. Purchased services fell drastically in fiscal year 22 due to HB 110, paying school choices directly where the students are educated instead of passing through us. 71% of the costs are for our wages and benefits, which is in line. Next slide, please. Estimated general fund expenditures for fiscal year 2023 by object for the forecast period. So we're showing the first 2 years we show the high because those expenditures were passed through the district, but fiscal year 22 to 27 is ours only. So as you can see, we're showing our expenditures are increasing, and our revenues are decreasing. It's not decreasing, flat. So next slide. Okay. This slide is very good one. Ending cash balance as true cash days. And this one is, if we don't, what we are trying to show is if we don't have any money coming in, how long can we sustain with the fund balance we have? So as you can see, 30 to 60 day cash balance as a responsible target to end the year. No less than 0 required by Ohio law. We fall below 30 day in fiscal year 2025. GFOA recommends 60 day or 2 months of unencumbered reserve. So you can see in 2025, we only can survive 22 days. After that, we cannot even go in business. So this one is good. So what, next slide, please. General fund concerns, what we have. in here is HB 110, Fair School Funding Plan, made many changes to the funding payments and expenses, but left us on the guarantee. When we say left us on the guarantee, the money we get from the state foundation is according to 2021 year. Eliminates open enrollment revenues and implements paying districts directly where students were educated. Student wellness and success guaranteed as part of base funding amount. So it used to come in different funds, but now they included it into the base funding, and that means it's coming to the general fund. We must continue to review costs and adjust budget, because we are still projecting to spend more than we receive long-term. ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds are the largest source of new money for our district over the next 2 years. Strategic use of ESSER funds can help our general fund balances sustain. HB 126, just passed into a law, will eliminate our ability to defend our tax bases from boards and BTA claims. General financial concerns. New state budget, House Bill 110, not providing substantial net new money. We are on a guarantee. So 2 years ago, what we were getting 2 years ago, that's what they gave us for these 2 years. There is no increase for guarantee districts. ESSER funds may help reduce general fund costs in 2021 to 2024 to help offset the cuts. Future funding is uncertain still for 2024 to 2027, as Fair School Funding Plan is not funded beyond 2024. Other proposals like college credit, plus excess costs, tuition, and are expected to increase our costs going forward. So those are the concerns we have, but really it looks good, our financials, since we have projecting positive for the next 3 years, which is required by OD.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation A. Do I have a second?
Second.
With that, do we have any questions on the motion?
Well,
Mr. Lacy?
I mean, A is the presentation,
Yes.
Right.
and
Oh, well, I meant to say B.
that's fine.
No, I'm sorry. No, I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation B. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who seconded it?
Mr. Sampson?
Okay.
Do we have any questions on the motion?
I mean, I'll just comment quickly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, of course, and whenever we look at this, it does look, it often looks stark, but that's mostly because of we have requirements for making assumptions about expenditures, and our assumptions about revenue are pretty much that we can't assume that our main source of revenue is going to increase, and that's state aid. The state is going to be working on the next biennium over the next few months, and we'll be monitoring that closely.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Anything else from the board? If not, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the monthly financial report for October 2022 as reviewed by the Finance Committee today at 5 o'clock.
I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation C. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions? Seeing there are none, may we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the official minutes for October 11, and October 18.
Okay, I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation D. Do we have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the resolution to reinstate the 457 deferred compensation plan as reviewed last week.
Thank you. Move to accept Treasurer's recommendation E. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the following 48-hour waiver purchase requisitions.
I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation F. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any questions for the Treasurer? If not, may we have a vote?
No, I have a question.
Oh, Dr. Goodwin.
Yes, what are the changes to the long jump track and field?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the original scope was just to simply replace what was existing, but it limited our ability to plan for future larger events. So what we did is we actually adjusted the height and the width after getting feedback from our track coaches so that we could start to have larger events. So just as an example, in the future, we're going to have the Edwin C. Moses relays, and Edwin Moses will be here himself. This will also bring in Roosevelt Memorial teams from across the Midwest. So the idea was to take this and extend it from the high school regulations and enlarge everything so that in the future we can grow in size and host larger events. So that's why this change order is done. Specifically, it's removal and grading prep. It's adding sand and reconfiguring what was there. And if I can answer any questions, I'd be more than welcome to.
Any questions? Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the motion? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend the approval of the purchase requisitions as reviewed last week.
I move to accept Treasurer's recommendation G. Do we have a second?
Second.
We moved and seconded. Are there any questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Your next recommendation, Madam Treasurer?
I recommend approval of the then and now as reviewed last week.
Move to accept Treasurer's recommendation H. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions on the motion? May we have a vote?
Yes, there's a question.
Why do I
on
not
the
see
motion.
Dr. Goodwine's hand? Dr. Goodwine.
Pick your head up.
I
Look at the
I look down
screen.
at the screen because I can't see it down that way.
Yeah, just following up, last week I asked a question about final forms and having the team look into the academic side of it. Dr. Lally, has your team been able to do that?
We can't do that in just a week's turnaround, so. We've started that process, but we don't have any answers yet for you.
Okay.
Any other questions? My apologies, Dr. Goodwine. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Does that conclude your recommendations, Madam Treasurer?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, I recommend the approval of the following expense reimbursement. There are corrections to amounts that were first listed on October 11th, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Next, I will go down to Mr. Lacy.
Okay. I went to the OSBA conference, so I got to get credit here for stuff I did. Sunday, I attended a meeting, a learning session, crisis management for education leaders. That was by the legal division. And then I went back today, and I spent the morning in learning about sunshine law. And then I went on from there to hot topics in school law. I enjoy the legal sessions because they give you a lot of information in a short period of time. And then after that, I went to the session about TIFs, tax increment financing. TIFs can affect your bottom line was the name of the session. So that was my day today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Dr. Pickett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I wasn't here last week, and I know that Dr. Lally got superintendent of the state, and I just want to say congratulations. I heard all the reasons why you got it. I did not hear anything about the international school, and I want to say thank you so much. I wish they would include that there. I attended also the Ohio School Board Association State Conference, and I had the pleasure of doing a presentation with Vice President Reiner and Rachel Underwood, our Senior Academic Coordinator. And we talked about the creation of the international school, all the struggles, and how it came about to be. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Pickett. Let us go to Board Member Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had an opportunity to review the attendance, suspension, and expulsion data for the first quarter, and I do have a question, Dr. Lally, for you. Do all of our schools have in-school suspension opportunities, or is it just based on the administrator? Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the first question. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
They're supposed to have an in-school suspension person, and I would need to ask HR if there are any openings in those positions. In the elementary school, it's the media specialist who doubles over into that position a couple days a week, and then media the other days. For our middle school and high school, they're supposed to have a paraprofessional who does that. Do you know if we have any openings?
The only, it's not really an opening. The only one that I'm aware that is not staff is Wagaman, and that's at the choice of the principal.
Okay. And then the second question I have, Dr. Lally, is what roles do the males and females of color play, if any, for students who are in school suspension in lieu of expulsion? Do they have any contact or programming that they do with those students?
They do not.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, that is the only questions I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Ryan.
Thank you. I also returned this morning from the Ohio School Board Association Capitol Conference. It's one of the events that I look forward to every year. The connection and the communication and the collaboration with school board members and superintendents and treasurers and administrators across the state is so invaluable. We are so siloed sometimes in knowing what other people are doing in their district, some of the struggles that they're facing. They're in many ways similar to ours and in many ways different, and it's such a really wonderful opportunity to connect and collaborate. I'm really grateful that I get to do that every year. I attended a number of sessions as well. I don't have the list in front of me like Board Member Lacey, but I attended a number of legal sessions as well. There are many legal updates and legislative updates that we have to face. There will be a very tall stack of policies that we will be reviewing in policy committee soon. And we're not sure what this lame duck session of the State House will bring us. But we had lots of updates about that. I attended a few sessions this morning. One was about the difficulty about students and the gender identity, which was a really interesting session to attend, as well as the legislative update with a few of our lawmakers in the State House. And so that's always an interesting perspective to hear the legislators come out and speak to us directly about some of their work with the public education legislation. I do want to mention the resolution that Jamie Ryan mentioned. Yesterday, the committee reviewed the resolution at the State Board of Education and passed the resolution, the amended resolution, out of committee, and it will be in front of the State Board soon. I thank you, Ms. Ryan, for your feedback. It is still my personal opinion that the resolution is deeply flawed. It might be amended and it might be less harmful, less explicitly harmful. I still find it to be harmful and misguided. I do not know what the intent is. I do not see how this amended resolution is in any way making students' lives better, is in any way supporting them. And so I still stand firm with the resolution that was passed last week. We need to do everything we can to support these children. Again, the session I attended this morning talking about parental rights and students' rights, it's very messy. There is a lot of disagreeing legal precedent, and there's a lot of legal issues that are in the courts right now that we have no precedent for. I will never claim that it is simple and that it is easy. As a parent, as somebody who was once a student, who looks at my children as students, I understand the very different ways that people approach this, much less the very different backgrounds and philosophical perspectives that we have. But overall, our work here on this dais is to improve the lives of students. And that includes supporting their emotional well-being, and it includes supporting their physical well-being. We have a very, very sacred duty here, and I take that very seriously. And so I just urge that in all the conversations that we have here, I urge that in all the conversations that the State Board has, that we refocus every once in a while. Are we doing what's right for students? Are we doing what's right for our kids? Other than that, I want to officially congratulate Superintendent Lally on her award. I had a great time this weekend showing her off and bragging about the work that she's doing among all the people that gathered together in Columbus. I was grateful for that opportunity. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Whitgagne.
Thank you, President Smith. Thank you all for being here tonight. I attended OSBA yesterday. I specifically wanted to go to support our colleagues up here, Board Member Jocelyn Spencer-Reinert and Board Member Dr. Gabriella Pickett, as they presented their work on the international school. There was really some wonderful information presented. I would welcome the opportunity for them to share the presentation to the board. I thought it was really enlightening. So the work that is being done in that building is remarkable, truly, truly remarkable. Rachel Underwood, her passion from which she serves is, if you could bottle that and move it across the district, it's really a beautiful thing. I think her lived experience in an immigrant family has really brought value to that program there. In that regard, it left me wondering or wanting those, we spoke of one-to-one services that these families are receiving, these families that have been traumatized, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to provide those services to these families. As I look across the district in our buildings and our families at Edison Elementary and Kaiser and all of our elementary schools and our middle schools, I'd like to understand a little more deeply the per-student ratio and the funds that are being spent on these one-to-one services, because I would like it to be offered to all of our students. If we are a community that serves a highly community that is in poverty, families that have lots of needs as well. And I just want to make sure that our students are all receiving that same service. So I'd really like to request our team, our financial team, to do a little bit of analysis on a per student ratio, the funds that are being spent per student in that scenario as opposed to our other buildings, and request that that same amount of equity be provided to all of our students. It's really wonderful, and I can see the benefits, and I just want to make sure that all of our students are receiving those same benefits. So thank you for your work, Board Member Reinert and Dr. Pickett, in really exposing some of these gaps more deeply so that we can make sure that all of our students receive these same services. I continue to appreciate the opportunity to serve, and thank you for allowing me to. I had hoped to report a little more on business advisory efforts. I haven't been able to get a meeting set up yet. I'm still working towards that end. President Smith and I have been doing some work along the lines of a lot of those efforts. I want to form them around Welcome Stadium and our campaign to raise funds around those efforts. So we're just still kind of developing some of that work. But in that regard, we are for the first time developing our sports alumni program. So I would invite our community at large this is the first time in Dayton Public School history that we will have a alumni association. And As you all know, we have so many talented, beautiful alumni that I know want to share their experience with us. So all of our alumni out there, our sports alumni, keep watching because we certainly want you to be a part of this exciting opportunity at DPS. So again, thank you for the time to serve. I appreciate you all. And thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, too, because we're not going to be back. So happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you.
Before we go to Dr. Goodwine, Dr. Lawley, did you have something?
I just want to ask clarification for the analysis for, you mentioned Kaiser and the neighborhood school centers. Do you mean for the international school or for the neighborhood school centers, or both?
No, I would like to understand that the funding that's being allocated to the international school
Okay.
on a per-student ratio, what that number equates to make sure that all of our students are receiving that equity.
Thank you for clarifying.
Dr. Cassandra Goodwine?
It's good that you can recognize me down here. I appreciate that.
I had to bring you back.
First, since we all giving out assignments today, I got a couple assignments myself. The first one, we have concluded the first quarter, and as you all know, this board took some risks in the first quarter, and we changed some things, and we requested some data. So I am actually going to go ahead and request that that data is brought to us in a presentation style from each school with, I'm hoping to honestly see a joint effort between our athletic team and our academic team of just presenting out really what happened in the first semester with our student athletes, what happened with their grades, their attendance, their suspensions, all those things. How did those students compare to our non-student athletes? Just some data points so we can actually have a rubric of seeing how do we do in this first year. And since we are now, grades are out, people should have received them by now, we can go ahead and finally see all that great information. And I just like to see it per school in a way that we can digest at this meeting that's not super long, but informative at the same way, nothing special. Second, program of study. I know this is my 11th month on the board, and I believe it came out either in my second or third month. But there's some things that I think that we need to talk about and include some people, like even with the resolution that came last week, and to clarify for any individual, the reason I didn't vote in favor of it is because I've taken a stance not to vote in favor of things that we as a board and as a district, we don't take an affirmative action in this district. We need to have classes and professional developments in this district that kind of go towards the light of what we're talking about, because we have the ability to do that as a local district. So even with our program of study, there's a great person in the audience today that can help us identify and put together some type of gender identity, gender studies, women's studies, all these type of classes that we can do right now. But with that one, Dr. Lawley, my question more so is, with the conversation, I know we have our experts on our team who have this, but how can we bring together not only what our staff is thinking we should do in the next program of study, along with what our community experts would like to see as just some of those individuals, so we can start talking about it before we get to that meeting where we get it at a review session, and then a week later we got to vote on it when we got a lot of ideas out here in the community. Can we set something up to start talking about this stuff?
Yes, and typically what happens is, and I can't say that it's happened in the last 2 years because I haven't done the program of studies myself, but whenever I did the program of studies, we always asked the teachers if there were courses they wanted to teach specifically, and then we would talk about the design of the course of study. So we can do that model as well as bring in community members who might be interested in helping out. So if you want to shoot me those names, we can get something designed so that we can talk about that.
That'd be great. And even if we can just have a town hall to just talk about some things, let's just hear from people. It may be some stuff out there that we're unaware of, but it comes out because we just have a good old-fashioned town hall with a topic on the board of what do you want to see out here. We don't have to take all the suggestions, but something might come out there. So that would be great. I want to say another first in our district as we are talking about the things we're doing here. I love it. There are some people who give time. There are a lot of people who lend their talents. and we finally have a way for people to give financially with not major strings in there on the page. You can now, in the year of 2022 of our Lord, PayPal donation button has been added to our website. It's beautiful. Share it. I mean, you never have to use it. I hope you use it, because all those things go into different programs to help us. As you guys saw our 5-year forecast, donations are one of those things that are unpredictable, but that help us in multiple ways. I think there are 3 ways, which, since we won't see you again, Giving Tuesday is it's coming up. It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. You know, after you get the deals on Friday and Monday, take that little extra change, throw it back into the district. Help us out. We appreciate it. There on the page, you will see it. A couple things that are out there are for our Welcome Stadium renovation, our band programs, the Dayton Public School Foundation, and you also can just donate to anything you think you want to put your money in our district. We'll take it, and we will make sure it is utilized to benefit the growth of not only our students, but to also help just enrich this whole institution. I also got to go to, what did y'all call it? It was like
OSBA.
that right there. And it was a eye-opening experience, because as you all know, last Tuesday, Ohio became irrelevant in the voting pool, as we do not mirror our neighboring states. And it was a very eye-opening experience to see that in a sea of red as a school board, we are this little speck of blue. And just hearing them talk about being purple, but seeing like the ideologies and the way that other school board members debate on what I consider to be very minor points in a larger discussion, it was, I will say that the school board you have before you is a very, very innovative school board compared to some of our neighboring districts. And I mean, I think those type of things, when we talk about what's going on and us trying to not only have conversations with each other, but share and bring our community into their thought process when we make these decisions, this isn't happening everywhere. There aren't a lot of people who ask questions that actually get to filling a gap in our district. There are a lot of individuals who spend a lot of time, again, focusing on the process of something that doesn't lead to the end vote. But once, yeah, it was different, guys. It was different. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone to go to the delegate meeting unless, actually, no, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, Dion blessed me with that fortune, and I'll be forever grateful for him. But it was good to hear some of the things that were on the plate, but it was disheartening to hear that this body of individuals couldn't move forward in a way that actually really completed the task that we were assigned. So I think that's everything I wanted to tell you guys. I got a lot in there, so I really appreciate your time, and thank you all for being out. Oh no, I have one more thing. I always say this, yeah, that's why I had to make a note. One more thing, I hear all the time that board members don't come around, they don't do this, they don't do that. I don't think that's true of this board at all, because I have seen or heard about multiple sightings of multiple individuals on this board, not only together, but with our actual staff. I want to continue to invite individuals in our district to come see us at work. We come to your job, we come see you. We're here every second and third Tuesday of the month. Come visit us, talk to us, put a name with a face, help us make this more of a relationship of a district versus individuals who sit high on the dais, because we're people just like everyone else. You can come see us and talk to us anytime. There's not a visible shield between us. And I personally welcome all conversations. I may not have solutions to things you say. It's okay to just talk to me about regular stuff out here in the world. But just come visit us sometime. Come stop by and see how the board conducts business, and give us feedback the same way we give plenty of feedback of ways to fill gaps through this district. We'll take it from you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goodwine. Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, the board, for approving the DEA contract and the DEA administrators and DSSs. The treasurer's office will work to make sure their pay is calculated and reflected correctly and paid from before Christmas. We are working on our annual comprehensive financial report to meet the deadline by the end of November to the state auditor's office. Also, we are under audit from the auditors of state, and we are working with them. The deadline is going to be December 31st. Now, in a positive note, we just finished it and approved the 5-year forecast. I'm so pleased to announce that we are in a positive note for the next 3 years. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Dr. Lally.
Thank you. We had a really successful professional development day on November 8th, and we also have 2 more scheduled for Monday and Tuesday next week. Students are off, but we have the professional development scheduled for those 2 days. The curriculum team and OEC team need to be congratulated and thanked for all the work that they do to make sure that there's enough room and enough topics that are appropriate and based upon what is needed in the district each time that we have a professional development day. So I want to send out a thank you to both of those teams as well as the chiefs that helped plan those. Had the privilege of seeing Jeff Canada again last night at the Omega Gala. The first time I met him, I was extremely impressed and awed. And again last night, extremely impressed and awed with his commitment and his drive and his determination to make sure that all students count and all students are taken care of. And I truly appreciate that and have tried to emulate that throughout my career as well. But his passion was just so refreshing and just moving, very, very moving. And then Dr. Goodwine took my last thing I was going to say. Giving Tuesday is coming up, so please feel free to donate to Dayton Public Schools to welcome stadium renovations, the band and instrumental program in the district, or the Dayton Schools Foundation, which actually gives grants to our teachers and also pays for different projects. So any of those 3 are on our website as well as something else of your choice. So thank you for all the donations that will be coming in on Giving Tuesday. Don't spend all your money on Black Friday. Just bring some money in for Giving Tuesday, and we will thank you ahead of time. And I do want to say, while the people are actually in the room, thank you to everyone for the reception last week and for the privilege of being superintendent in Dayton Public and working with each of you, staff, students. Forgot to thank my family who was sitting right there as well. So I'm still paying for that as we go through this next week, but wanted to thank everybody for that. I will actually take the position of being the Ohio State Superintendent of the Year January 1st because the person who's Superintendent of the Year for 2022 is finishing out his time to wear the crown and be the Superintendent of the state of Ohio. So just have a couple more months and then I actually will be the official one. So thank you all very much for that. And thank you for the work that we've all done together to achieve that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Lally. First off, I want to say that it was a great moment last night attending the gala for the Omega CDC and their Hope Center. I mean, it was a fantastic time. I do not think I've been to a larger crowd in that facility. I mean, there was no room for anything, no seats for anyone else. It was sold out. What really was my takeaway from listening to Mr. Canada was understanding that the children that he was advocating for are the children that we see in our district every day. Those are those children. Those are those children when he speaks of how do we provide for poor children, for children that have been left behind by society, for the socioeconomic ills of our nation, and these are the byproducts of what we've seen. And to see that many people in the room, I really wanted to go around and like wave a DPS flag and say, hey, this is what he's talking about. the work that we do in this district is that kind of work. So I really, really had a great time. I want to say thank you to our staff that were there. Special shout out to our Fairview and Edwin Joe Brown team that were there to support as they have a partnership with Omega CDC and the Hope Scholars Program, which Ms. Thompson came out and spoke about. So I really want to thank them. It was a great time just hearing what their stories are and what they're seeing. And I mean, there was just so many people in that room. Me and Dr. Lally, I'm told I was about to get my hat out and say, hey, we giving money, let's go ahead and do it. But understanding that, and I really want people in our community to understand that when people get together for these great causes, and I'm glad we have this donation button and things, because we are seriously in need, and that is why our people come to work every day, because they see the need, and I appreciate that. Also, this morning, I had the additional pleasure of being able to sit down at a small breakfast with Mr. Canada, so being able to pick his brain some more and actually having some one-on-one time to talk about the things that we're doing in Dayton Public. So I was very, very honored to have that moment with somebody who is doing this work around this country, and for him to take note of our city and of note our district and say, what can I do to help out Dayton Public Schools was something that, you can't pass that up. Even if it means I have to get up at 7:30 for breakfast, can't pass it up. On another note, I would just want everybody to have a happy holidays. On the topic of Thanksgiving, I'm thankful myself for everything that this district has done for me. That is why I have my Meadowdale Lions shirt on today, because that gave me my start here as a person, this district. I'm thankful for everybody we see in here. I'm thankful for the human beings that I see out there all the time on the dais. I always love looking at Amit because he's always happy. I love Chief Harmon with his updates. I love hearing from Dr. Burton. I love hearing from Sam. I love the fact that we have a PIO department that when we have these kind of ideas, that they turn around things like the Giving Tuesday. And also another thing that I'm thankful for is the fact that we're starting now a DPS alumni newsletter. So if you go follow our page, go online, you can leave your email address, and that's another way we're trying to make sure that we touch people that even aren't in Dayton. So people that are not in Dayton anymore, if you have that, send that out, and I'll make sure that we get that up on our Facebook page soon. So if you, they move quickly here. I love it. But being able to put that out. So we want our alumni to know what's going on, because a lot of our alumni don't have children in DPS anymore, but they truly care about this district. And being able to have that immediate touch with them, I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for the group that has been working together, like Ms. Witt-Gagne said, about our Hall of Fame, and we'll probably have some more of that next month. I'm proud to say that those meetings have been some of the most rewarding times to spend with people from different eras. So on those meetings, there have been people that graduated from DPS in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, after the 90s, like me. Don't hate me. But if you want to see a real conversation and knock down, drag out argument about athletics and what they do for this district, those conversations, and then you threw Dr. Goodwine in the mix, so you know how those conversations went. So just being able to have people all talk about not only honoring this, but a big portion of those conversations was about how do we turn this Hall of Fame into something that provides for the district. So to see these people that are no longer in the district, people that have come back from professional careers, that have gone on to college to play and come back and say, hey, you know what? And look at ourselves in the mirror and say, maybe we can do better for this district. And that's what it's really all about, is honoring our past, but having them come together and say, hey, we were here. Anything that I might want to say negatively about what we're not doing anymore or what we used to have, we can be the answer. And a lot of times we look around everywhere for the answer and we don't realize we're the answers. And so that's what I've loved about that, is that group really fights to say, hey, how can we make this a fantastic thing to honor our culture, honor our history, honor people who are no longer here, but how do we make it work for the kids that we have here today? And so that has been amazing. So just seeing all those new things that have come just this year. Lastly, we're going into our winter sports season. So please, 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 it's not football anymore. You don't have to be out in the cold. It's not just basketball. Go to a girls' basketball game. Go to a wrestling meet. We have bowling teams now. We have swimming teams. Please, please, please support these children. They truly, truly love seeing faces there. On another note, a new addition that we're having this year are spirit squads and pep bands at our basketball games. So really trying to give these kids that feel of I can belong to something. And that is the goal of our athletic advisory committee, is really trying to see how can we find places for, a child that you might not play a sport, but I want you to be on this activity. I want you to play in the pep band. And I want to note that those things also follow those same eligibility guidelines. Because now I want a kid to be able to say, I'm on pep band, but I still get to go to study tables. And so now we're holding those things accountable in all those ways. So all of those new things are coming that I am so incredibly thankful for everybody that works so hard in this district to make these things happen. Because our students really enjoy it. They really have had so much fun doing some of these things. And lastly, I did want to give a shout out to our athletic team. They had a fantastic post online, I want to say last night, this morning, that showed our all-district so far that came out, football players. And, we talked about, we had a meeting about some of the things that were going on this football season. So I want to shout out when things go well. Every single team in this district had at least 2 players be all-district. And to put that out there and say, hey, even if we don't care about this win-loss record. Look at what we're producing. Look at what we're doing. And to show that every team had that, a big shout out to their coaches, big shout out to the athletic department, big shout out to their teachers and staff and people that pour into them. So be thankful, and please remember in these times those who do not have their family members or loved ones, because this is a hard time for a lot of people in our community. So while we are being thankful, please take time to love on some folk. Make sure everybody's loved on, because this can be really, really trying and triggering and traumatic for people who do not have those people that we talk about when we say spend time with your family. So with that, I motion to adjourn and get out of here. Do I have a second? Been moved and seconded. I see no questions. Let me look for Dr. Goodwin. No questions. May we have a vote?
President Smith,
Thank you. Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Ms. Wiegany,
Yes.
Dr. Pickett,
Yes.
Dr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
7 yeses.